So from there, it was like, now I moved from knowing God as the supreme being, my creator, to my friend. Like, he's actually involved in my life. Every decision I make, he has to be there. And he's concerned about me, because I remember it was a time when I was also battling a lot of anxiety and depression. It was really bad. I had lost myself completely. So that transition was so essential, because now I was coming to know God as my friend, as the one who cares for me. And the minute I went into that, that's where I started seeing an upgrade in my spiritual life. But the thing about God, he's infinite. You can never say, I've reached. It's to know him every day, to commune with him every day. That is the goal.
I see.
Young people, I believe, are very close to God, in the sense that if you look through the Bible, most of the people who were called by God were called when they were young.
Yeah.
I remember when I first read the book of the story of Prophet Samuel, that he was only 7 years when he encountered the Lord for the first time. That really touched me. I was like, Lord, I think I was 10 or 11 when I read that story for the first time. And I'm like, he was even younger than me. I was like, I was moved. I was like, God, you love children so much. You love young people so much. We look at the life of Jesus. He was in the temple when he was 12. I mean, most 12-year-olds don't want to be in the temple. They want to be in the park, But there he was, doing his father's business. History proves, actually, the disciples are not necessarily, when we watch no shade to the movies and stuff. Most of them were young. They were actually in their teenage years when Jesus called them. Why? Because God has a heart for the young people. The young people still have strength, zeal, energy, they have influence, and they most of the time, for a young person, especially a young person who's determined, when they've made up their mind about something, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to undo that, They have faith. They have big faith for big things, and they don't have too many responsibilities, especially for those who are not yet parents or spouses. So God knows all of that. And the irony is, we live in a society where young people are still looked down on, even today, still sidelined in the name of they are too young. You are too young. You are too inexperienced. But according to who? Because if you look at the system of God, that's not how God operates. Yes. David was a kid when he was anointed. The same inexperienced guy when his brothers were soldiers for years, right? So for me, that's what drives me towards the young people. That God has a heart for them. He has a place for them on his table. And we need to create that. The more we sideline the young people, the more we're losing them.
So, welcome, Lauraine, to the show. Thank you so much for making time to join us. Thank you so much I know you have a busy schedule, so thank you so much for just allowing us to, have a space for your story and everything.
Thank you for having me. Really, I'm a fan of the show.
I'm glad.
Thank you.
I'm glad. So, I just want to dive right into the deep end, and I would like to start with your creative background.
Right.
One thing I see a lot in your journey and in your process is that you're very passionate about people expressing themselves. You're very passionate, like how you're a writer, you're a poet, guys.
Writer, voiceover actress.
Voiceover actress.
Love poetry, by the way.
I got that because I saw earlier used to have a lot of poets on, so I thought you see that those type of things, like you're very passionate about people expressing themselves. You create space. You have your own show, radio, your podcast as well. So you're very passionate about that. Where did that come from? That desire to see people express themselves, especially creatively.
Thank you for the question, Hans. Well, I must say it's something that God deposited in me from a young age. I loved art from the very beginning, music, poetry, film, and then there was, television and broadcasting and radio. I just loved those things. I grew up listening to the radio. watching television shows, watching movies. And I was always that person who would watch, but with, a critical eye. It's like, what's the hidden meaning? What's this and that, And then when I went to high school and I did literature, I was like, this is me. This is what I want to do. But how it tied in with my creative process was just to see God in art. I always tell people, even when I started my podcast, The Creative Space, I said I had that revelation that God showed himself as the creator, and he wanted me to help people see him, in the creative process of someone. So if someone says I'm a poet, it's not just because, they feel that way, but God deposited that creative ability to put the words together and give us a poem, to give that artist, that creative ability to give us sounds and words that will make a song.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that's where it came from, just seeing God in the creative aspect, in the creative space as a whole.
That's so interesting. And when you speak, it reminds me, do you know that story, that guy in Exodus who was designing the
Ark of the Covenant.
Yes, and then God blessed him with that
That's
spirit
right.
for design.
That's right.
I think I hear a lot of when you speak, you have this beautiful. It's like you see things. How do you? By the way, the way you think, are you the type of person who sees things that might not even not that you like in that way, but you have that vision of seeing things?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, I do. I always tell people that I think I'm a daytime dreamer than a nighttime dreamer. In the night, I won't remember much, but during the day, I'll start picturing certain things, and it comes to when it now comes to fruition, it's like, this is exactly what I had envisioned earlier. So yeah, God is in our thoughts. And I love that example you gave, because this man was not there when God was speaking to Moses, right?
Yes.
God was speaking to Moses and saying, I will gift him that ability to create what I'm instructing you. So it took faith also from that man to believe what Moses was telling him, that God said to me, you are the one who's going to create the tabernacle. And of course, he had to envision. There was no AI where he's like, oh, this is what I meant, So he really had to have a revelation of what God had given Moses for him to have the ability now to bring it to, tangibility. So yeah, for me, God speaks, sometimes I do get inspired a lot. I see something, I listen to something, and I'm like, oh, okay, how would that sound if we could put it like this and like this and like that? So yeah, definitely, but God is a huge factor in all of it.
I see. And growing up, do you have any role models or people who kind of said that, okay, I can't do this now, growing up and professionally and things like that?
Okay. Growing up, I can say, let's start at home. My sister and I, we have a lot of similar interests. So when she would listen to radio and I would listen to radio, she'd watch movies, we would watch the movies together. That's where I really started having interest in it. But now getting into the professional space, I have to give credit to my spiritual father, Apostle Makwara. I would never forget that conversation. I was in varsity, and I tried getting into our varsity radio station, and they allowed me to give words of inspiration. So it was just before I went to do that, and I told him, I said, Daddy, I want to inspire the youth, and I don't know where to start. I don't know how to do it. And he was like, did you try radio? I'm like, yeah, at my school, I applied and this is what happened. And he said, okay, no problem, but you should also try the other radio spaces. And I was like, okay, will they take me, without any media qualifications whatsoever? But then he got me in touch with one of the VOC presenters who showed me the process of application and everything. And in faith, Hans, I just applied. I didn't know what to expect. I said, even if they won't take me, at least I tried, But God, in his mercy, they shortlisted me for the interview, and I passed the interview, then I went for the internship. And that's where this journey of being a radio personality became so real.
Wow.
It was like, wow, this is it. I moved from not knowing what a sound disc is to doing it all on my own, And then, of course, God started, he planted that dream in us, me and my co-host, Pilile, to start the Divine Youngsters podcast. And when we started it, many people were like, this has never been done, let alone in, VOC. But God had a plan. And 3 years in, over 100 episodes, we have hosted the biggest names, really.
Yeah.
I don't even want to brag, but it's the truth. We're most
Yeah.
of the biggest names. And God showed us that, if you will surrender the creative process to Him, He will do what only He can do.
That is beautiful. I think you need someone who can like see. I think we always have a smaller view of ourselves, but the fact that your pastor saw that you could do that and such a big level, that's really, really huge.
He really did.
Yeah,
He really did.
That is really encouraging, I think, for a lot of people. And one of the things that I hear a lot is like, there's a lot of like your community is such a big part. So like, how did they encourage you to? Because I know it's along the journey, there's ups and downs.
Yes.
So how does your community like help you in those moments where maybe need to see that the other side of things, maybe?
Community plays a big role, Hans. Your community will either make you or break you. And I know sometimes we think community means like everyone must be supporting me, but that's not necessarily it. Even if your community is 2 people, even if your community is 1 person, that 1 person will play a very big role. For me, God blessed me with a very supportive, family, friends, close friends, spiritual family, because in them saying, wow, like, we didn't know you could do that. Please continue, you are helping our youth, you're helping so and so, you're helping so and so. Those words really like keep me going. I don't even want to say it as an understatement. They really keep me going. When I read my messages, people whom I've never even met, maybe they just follow me on social media, and they reach out and say, thank you for that show, thank you for that episode, it helped me. I'm like, wow. Even on the nights and the days when I can't wake up every morning, I'm like, God, I'm tired, I don't want to do this anymore. Literally, someone is holding on. It's like at 2:30, Lauraine is coming on, and she's going to say something. So for me, that's when I realized that community is so important. The people you surround yourself with, so important. Because if you're going to be with people who just downsize you, undermine you, or try to derail you from the vision that God has placed over your life, unfortunately, the results will not be good. But the minute you're surrounded with people who keep you grounded in the word, grounded in your purpose in this life, you will definitely find your space. There's somebody who's very close to me, and I remember he asked me to MC his first music show. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never done this. I don't know if I can host a show like live. I was like, of course I'm, when you're confident, like on air, exactly, extroverted, but then you're like, now I have to like MC a show, music show for that matter, But he was able to see what I wasn't seeing about myself. And the minute he was able to do that, after that show, it was like another show. Like God kept opening doors to say, okay, now I want you to MC here. Now I want you to MC there. So you really need people who can see, like you say, people who will see you even bigger than you see yourself, so that you can accomplish what God has put in you. People who will challenge you rather than keeping you confined in that same level that you would have found yourself in.
Taking out of your comfort zone.
Exactly. In the best way. Yes, in the best way possible.
I see. I think you've spoken a lot about, you've had to make a lot of faith moves, it sounds like. But how did that faith develop? Was this from your household? Do you come from a church-going family? Or was it something you picked up as you were going to high school and university?
Thank you for that question. I grew up in a faith-driven home, definitely, especially credits to my mom. She's a prayer warrior. She loves the Lord. And through her life, through the things she went through, I saw what it means to live a life for the Lord. However, in this faith journey, I'm sure you know yourself, we can only do so much. Our parents can only do so much to teach us about God. There comes a time where you have to now make the decision for yourself. I can say my first time where I started having some form of a personal revelation of God was when I was in preschool. We used to, come to preschool and they would play these gospel songs, these children's songs, and everyone has to sing along. It's like, when is this going to be over? All that. And by the time I was in grade 2, when I was 7, that's when I dedicated my life to Christ for the first time on my own. There was these missionaries that came to school. I don't know if you still remembered. We used to have this comic called The Book of Hope.
The Book of Hope.
The Book of Hope comic. Us 90s kids.
Yeah.
So they gave us that, and I remember this white missionary. He was just preaching. He was like, Jesus came for you, and I was just there, like crying my eyes out. And I did the salvation prayer, and from that day, like my life changed. Of course, there were ups and downs, in my journey with God, but I can say that from there, that's where the seed was really planted. Choices I would make even at school, people would always, some kids would mock me, the Bible girl, the preacher, the this and that. But I was actually okay with it. Like I knew that was my identity because I loved the Lord sincerely. But by the time I was 13, I rededicated my life. Like now that was like the full, like now I have a full understanding. Now I know where I want to go with this journey of faith. And coming to that, walking in the faith, serving. We started we started in a traditional church around that time when I was 6, 7. Stayed there for about 10 years plus before we moved now to the ministry that we're under Apostle Makwara, which is Family Worship Center International. And from there, my revelation of God changed again. It was like now, like there was like an upgrade.
And
like,
this is now, so 13, I used to.
So I went to Family Worship Center 16 when I was 16.
16.
Yeah, when I was 16. So from there, it was like now I moved from knowing God as the supreme being, my creator, to my friend. Like he's actually involved in my life. Every decision I make, he has to be there. And he's concerned about me because I remember it was a time when I was also battling a lot of anxiety and depression. It was really bad. I had lost myself completely. So that transition was so essential because now I was coming to know God as my friend, as the one who cares for me. And the minute I went into that, that's where I started seeing an upgrade in my spiritual life. But the thing about God, he's infinite. You can never say, I've reached, it's to know him every day, to commune with him every day. That is the goal.
I see.
Yeah.
When you said like you broke down or you started crying, what resonated with you? I'm not sure if you can remember, but what resonated with you about the message or just hearing about God that made you have that reaction?
I think the way the gospel was presented to us, because at home, of course, the gospel was being presented, my mom would teach us about God and, we'd go to church every Sunday. But I think the way he packaged it that morning, it was more of like, Jesus is right here.
I see.
He's not just up there, Exactly. He's right here with me. And he's hearing me say this prayer. I think that was what touched me the most. And I remember I even went home and I read my Book of Hope. I resonated with the stories of Jesus in there because I was like, he's here, like he's in my heart now. He's not just the creator of the universe who's watching over me and, checking if I'm doing good or not. He is in my heart and he loves me as I am.
Wow, that's a beautiful. I think it speaks about that childlike nature. It speaks a lot about that.
The childlike faith.
Yeah.
That's true. And I think if many of us believers can have that, even today, as grown adults, we would be so far in our faith than if we just look at God as this far-off being who's, just watching over people and waiting to judge them. He cares. He really cares. And he really loves us so much that he didn't want an eternity without us. That's why he brought Christ. So I think if we can live like that every day, we would find ourselves in a better place.
Yes. And I think you also spoke about being challenged with like anxiety and just going through that motion. How did that also interact with your faith? Because one of the things we speak about, I think, Christianity is that it's mostly about the things which are happening to us. Like when you can minister to someone and they're going through a feeling of violence or something like that, but we don't speak about the eternal turmoil. Did anyone help you through that? Scripture helped you there? How did you get through that as a Christian specifically?
I remember when I was first diagnosed, the doctor looked at me and my mom. He was like, "Yeah, she's going through anxiety and depression," and I said, "I'm not. I'm fine. Hello, I'm like one of the most popular people in school. What are you talking about? You know, well, popular for being a nerd, of course, not anything else different, but I was shocked. And my mom was like, you know, you have to get yourself together. Like, we can't, you had the doctor, if you don't, you know, heal, you're going to get on medication. Like, you know, the people with mental issues, medication, like antidepressants and things like that. And I went home and I was blaming myself even more. I was like, oh, so it's my fault. I put myself in this. But during that time period when I was at home, that's when God started ministering to me that, no, it's not you. It's what is attacking you. It's not you. It's not your identity. And I remember it was around the time when we had just started going to Family Worship Center. So my spiritual father was preaching a message on identity. And he kept saying this phrase. He said, "You are the righteousness of God." Do you know what that means? And he started telling us that, look at yourself in the mirror every morning before you leave the house. Tell yourself that I am the solution the world is looking for. I am the righteousness of God. I am, you know, making all these prophetic declarations over yourself as a person. And I remember that message changed me. I said, all this time I've been accompanying my this depression, this anxiety, and making it mine. Like, oh, I have this. This is, I will have to carry this for the rest of my life. Yet I don't. I don't have to. And the irony was, the cause of the anxiety and depression, of course, was, you know, long term, lots of things that had happened in my life, including academic challenges. You know, moving from being the A student to being the one who's now at average or below average. So those things were like attaching themselves to me. Like, oh, now what are you going to do? The one thing you're holding on to is slipping away. You have nothing. You don't deserve anything good in your life. And I was believing those lies for so long. But God, in His mercy and in His love, used His word. The word penetrated through me. I remember I started watching testimonies as well. You know, on Christian television, TBN, Daystar. And I would hear the stories of these people, some of them coming out of bad addictions, coming out of satanic worship, coming out of, you know, all these things that they've come out of. And I'm like, God, if you took that person out of that, what can you do with me? Like, you know, I mean, this person was, you know, I remember one of the stories that really touched me was a man who was born in Satanism, and he was a Satanist for 25 years of his life. I was like, 25 years is a long time. But God, you know, in His mercy and love, saved him out of it. And now he's not just saved, he's preaching and he's delivering people who are in that kind of lifestyle. So I said, if God can do all that for a person like him, it means He can do the same, you know, in my life with what I'm going through. And that's where the healing journey really began. Just, you know, reminding myself who I am in God, why I'm here, what He has put on the inside of me. And I have to give it also to my spiritual mom, my pastor's wife. She would always, you know, of course now they are not based in Eswatini anymore, but when they were here, she would always, like when she sees me, she would always say, "You are a light of God." Like she would speak words. Until sometimes, even when I'm okay in front of people, the minute she starts speaking to me, I'm breaking down because I'm like, how did she know that today was not a good day? You know, she would speak words of life every single time. And even now, you know, she will reach out to me when we talk on the phone. She's always speaking words of life. And you need that. As a young person, you need that. Words are spirit in their life. So if you are surrounded by people who will speak words over you, words that are encouraging, that are building for your spirit, it can take you, you know, to places that God is calling you to go. So I can say the word was really something God used. Even worship. I remember I discovered Hillsong's music when I was around 13, 14. And every time I'd listen to those songs and just speak them over myself, that's how, you know, the restoration was taking place. And even now, worship is still a big part of my life.
I see. I think, you know, all of that speaks to what you spoke about in the beginning, which was identity. That was such a critical part. One thing that is just speaking, you know, it's interesting because one of the things when Jesus was tempted, the core thing that the devil tempted was his identity. If you are you really? Yes, like are you really? And so when I hear you say that, it's so powerful to hear that you had people around you to minister to you,
Yes.
to speak to your identity, to
That's
allow you
right.
not to base your identity, on the things that you were doing, but that
That's
you
true.
are still a daughter of God. Still.
That's right.
Is that something which is that easier now? You're still processing through that? How are you doing that now?
Funny you asked that question because I was telling someone that God has been ministering to me about his love. As a child who grew up as an A student, most of the love I can say I was receiving was performance-based.
Wow, interesting.
People want to be around you because you're the best performing student. You're the most, you're obedient at home and what. Not to say, of course, people around me didn't love me, but, there was that element of saying, like, maybe people like me because I do this, And the minute that is removed, the minute you stop performing is the minute you will really see who loves you and who doesn't.
Yeah.
So even with God, sometimes as Christians, we have this performance mentality. It's so indirect sometimes, like, oh, God is blessing me because I fast, because I pray, because I serve in the house of God, because I give. But God loves you just because of you. He loves you because you are his. You are carrying his DNA because he made you. And the minute we will have that revelation is the minute then we will stop attaching his love to, the things that we do. Because that's what Satan does. He will, when you fall into sin, he will say, oh, now God doesn't love you because you didn't go to church on Sunday, because your love for God and his love for you according to you is performance based. But if you love God sincerely, not only because of the things he does for you as well, because some of us, we like to also base our love exactly towards God, because God has given me this, God has given me that. The minute he will not give you that, you will say, he doesn't love me. Yet that isn't true. So this attachment we have to love and performance being one package, it should be dismantled. Love is not a feeling, it's a decision. And the minute we will be able to do that towards God as well, I think that's where our identity will be protected. That, even if I get that breakthrough or I don't get that breakthrough immediately, God still loves me. Even if God, even if I make mistakes in the eyes of God, he still loves me. But, and here's the best part, you will want to live a better life because you love him.
Yes.
So even these things we battle with of sin and temptation and all those things will start drifting away, right? Because of the one you love in you. Because you'll be saying, because I love the Lord, I will not, do these things. Not because, maybe I do I, That's where the confusion is. When we don't know what real love is, the love of God, we will not be able to please him, and we will not be able to accept his love as well.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's a powerful word. So, I just wanted to ask, just to move back into your creative process, and now that, when we move from that to working, you're a young adult, you're working, everything. It is unfortunately now, and especially for you, you are in the content creation space. It is unfortunately a space where, similar to what we're speaking about, it is very like this happens and then this happens. So how do you deal with the challenge of being in such a front-facing job while still being a Christian? How do you handle those two, like being in those two spheres of life and stuff? Yeah, those two spaces.
Well, I remember when I got picked at VOC, I asked the Lord, I said, okay, God, you are sending me to the only Christian radio station in Eswatini. I know you have a purpose. And the more I worked there was the more I realized that surely we need more Christian spaces. The media space is a space that a lot of Christians shy away from because they're like, lots of demonic influence, lots of this, lots of that, which is true. And I think that's what Satan mastered. He saw that media is from the word medium, right? A medium, a channel, a way to transmit information. So he saw that if I can capture the way information is transferred and interpreted, I've captured the world. And that's why even the media space today is the highest paying space out of all the other space, whether it's sports, it's all under media. These people are making serious money. And whether we know it or not, they influence everything, the way we dress, the way we eat, where we go, they influence that because that space was created for that. But here's the beautiful part. Jesus said when he was leaving, all power and authority has been given unto me, right? All power and authority of what? Of all worlds, including the media world. The same world Christians are shying away from. So if we can capture the media space, the television, radio, sports, music, arts, what do you think can happen in the world, really? If we can decide as Christians and say, you know what, we're going to take this space for the Lord and for his glory, I'm telling you the truth, we would see a huge change in the world, in the way people speak, in the way people eat, in the way that people carry themselves, how they dress, everything would start changing because the message we are giving the world will be the message of Christ. So for me, Hans, when I get in that space, that's what I tell myself, that I'm a conduit of the message of Christ. I have to come here and give people Christ. Yes, by God's grace, we've had the opportunity, of course, to be exposed in different spaces. You meet different people, especially in the media corporate space. You go to different events, right? Where maybe the event is not labeled as a Christian event, but there are Christians who are attending, and there are some stuff that is going on that is linked to Christianity, especially in our country, because Eswatini is a Christian country. So those things happen. And you see certain things, you see certain behaviors, you notice certain, patterns that are being practiced. But it comes down to, who do you serve? It takes me back to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, living in Babylon, seeing what is going on, but choosing not to defile themselves, choosing to serve the God that they were introduced to back in Israel. So for me, I believe that's what keeps me together. The opportunities have been there, you find yourself in a space where you're like, maybe if I can just tweak just a little, I can just get, that extra access. But you ask yourself, at what cost? That's the biggest question. And I always tell myself that this is a test. And if I don't pass the test now, what's going to happen when I get a bigger platform and a bigger opportunity? Would I still pass the test, or would I tell myself, if I compromise that time, I can compromise here, I can compromise there? So as children of God in the media space, yes, you get a lot of exposure, but you really have to keep your communion with Christ, to say, if he doesn't approve of it, no matter how good it looks, no matter how attractive, you really have to take a step back.
So you have that foundation inside.
That's right.
I see. I think now, just a simple question, but what do you enjoy most about the creative process? What do you enjoy most about creating?
Wow. I love the stories. Just sitting across somebody, especially what we do with the creative space and TDYP, someone walking into the studio and them telling their story. It's just, it always gets me every single time. Sometimes you can even have a perception of someone before they've come, right? Maybe you've seen them on social media and all that, and you're like, okay, maybe when they come, they're going to be like this. And then when you sit there with them, you're like, oh, wow, this person is very different from what they show on social media. So hearing their story and seeing God in their story, that for me really touches me. A few months back, we had a TDYP episode where our girls who had come in as our guests were crying from the testimonies we had asked them to share. We were talking about waiting on God. Yes. So we had asked them a question like, what season in your life did you see God when you were waiting on him? And one of them shared her testimony of how God provided for her family when there was literally nothing in their home. And she was crying. And before we know it, we were crying too. Like it was just so emotional, unscripted, but God was showing us his power in that episode. So hearing people's stories, seeing how far they've come with the Lord, I think for me, that's always the best part.
Wow. And again, it goes back to that thing where like you are very passionate about people.
Yeah.
You really love. Is that something which was again coming from your mom? was that something which you discovered later on about yourself?
Definitely, I discovered it later on. Of course, mom played a role. How you are raised does contribute, but I can say I discovered it later on in my life. Surprisingly, she always tells me that when I was a baby, I was the sociable baby. Like she said, you would be here, and the next thing someone just walks in and picks you up, and you don't cry, you don't do anything. She said she would be so scared that maybe one day someone will kidnap me, and I won't even tell her because I'll be so comfortable. She said you were always the people's baby, like everyone wanted to be around you. So she said she didn't understand it then, but now when she looks at my career, she understands it, that God was telling her that she's going to be for the masses.
Wow,
So yeah, I can say it's something that I discovered later on. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I think you get a beautiful picture of someone by not just the person, but how people react to them. I think when I see like the way if people are that comfortable to cry in your presence, if people are comfortable to share their stories, it says a lot. It really says a lot. So that's really nice for you to share. And then the aspects that I also wanted to speak about your career as well is also your collaboration. Being around you said you interview a lot of people. You're asking a lot of people. How do you still keep that the passion, the fire going? You said how long have you been doing your show?
TDYP 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah, 3 years now.
How do you keep that passion like going for people? I'm sure you can hear someone's story and it maybe sounds like you've had this a lot of times, but how do you keep that fire going for you, basically?
Surprisingly, when when you're interviewing people, right? Of course, like you said, there will be some of it that sounds like, oh, okay, I've heard this before, but then that's where you see the hand of God.
Okay.
That He says to us in His Word that He made us fearfully and wonderfully, right? We're fearfully and wonderfully made. Everyone is peculiar. Everyone is different. Even the science says, our fingerprints are not the same, right? So they will say something, then there will be a tweak in the story that you can now see that, oh, this is very different from what I know. So that for me is what always gets me. Seeing the person's personality. I mean, everyone has, that charisma about them, that thing that we can say that this is Hans. No one can do this except him. So for me, that's what captivates me when we have a different guest. On my podcast, The Creative Space, I've interviewed three gentlemen so far, and each of them, they're in the artistic space, but every time I watch the interview, I'm like, oh, he's different. He's different. So you're just that edge that God gave you, that it factor, that it quality that He gave you to say Hans will be like this, and this is what will make him stand out. That's what always captivates me.
I see. And then on the flip side as well, 3 years is a long time. But I'm sure there's also are there people who are mentoring as well, who have been in the space for longer? How have you also dealt with like trying to find mentors, or if you're being mentored, how have you handled that process as well?
Thank you for that. Okay, I would say firstly, my spiritual dad, literally, I will talk about it, but he played a big role. He's been exposed to media as a man of God. He's been on radio a lot of times, television lots of times. So I would watch his videos and see how he presents himself in front of people. Before he left Eswatini, he had like a relationship with almost every pastor, to the point that if a pastor asks me, who's your pastor? I'm like, oh, Makora, like almost everyone knew him. And when we'd have conferences, I would see the way he treats, men of God who have come and women of God who have come, even if they're not like the guests on the guest list, but they've attended. He would literally go to each of them, greet them, thank you for coming, and things like that. So I would learn about, so I have to keep these relationships, even if I interview this person once. When I see them in town next time, I mustn't I must be able to still have a fruitful conversation with this person. So there was that. And then coming out of my church, there are people I do look up to. Some of them I've met them in person, some very all-class, well-seasoned MCs, in the country that I look up to, that I speak to from time to time. And then some I watch them online. Okay, so some of them I'm following them from, a hindsight view, especially outside of the country, some in South Africa. I don't know if I'm allowed to name drop. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So in Eswatini, let me start at VOC. I really want to give a big shout out to my, I call him my father at the radio station, Babes ZM. He's been a great mentor. He taught me how to do voice-over ads. He would always project your voice, Lauraine, project your voice. So big shout out to him. He also taught me how to make jingles. So yeah, definitely he played yes, like the jingles. Those. This is VOC that we played before the song. Yeah, he's the one who showed me how to do that. And then coming out of the radio station, I would say, of course, your seasoned MCs, right? Jovicho, like he's like, watching him and hearing him speak is like, what? And Mr. Courtesy. I had the privilege of interviewing him also on my podcast, The Creative Space. And hearing his story was like, now it makes sense. Because I would see him on stage and I'd be like, okay, like how how is this possible in Eswatini? But after he shared his story with us, that's when I was like, I see how far he's come with this and why he's doing it this way. So yeah, big shout out to him on that. Outside the country, I mean, you're visiting the like you can just tell that this this is excellence. This is excellence on a whole new level. And yeah, there's Rebecca Lem-Weiss when it comes to Christian podcasters. I see that she took a lot from her mom, the late Johnny Lem, and her father, Pastor Marcus Lem, who's also late. So that, I think, seeing them and watching ministry now, the Daystar family and all that, it also played like a huge role. I remember when I would watch Johnny Lem's Table Talk, I would always picture myself. I'm like, that's gonna be me, and then my girls, I was like envisioning it all. Little did I know that in a few years' time, God was going to introduce me to that space. So yeah, I can say you never. Oh my! Like I started watching Johnny Table Talk when I was 16, 17 there. So I was like, it's me. I didn't know that. In 2023, I was gonna be in the radio space. So yeah, definitely, I can say those were the people that played a huge role in what I'm doing.
That's really incredible, and I love that you always learn. You love learning from people and everything. That's really nice.
That's true.
Now, just as we're wrapping up now, I just wanted to ask, like, from your perspective, what still keeps you, like, you said something about like waking up in the morning. What still keeps you like going at this point? What would you love to see, not just from yourself, but I think you also spoke about the Eswatini creative space. There's a lot that's going on.
That's true.
There's a lot of people like trying to build and everything. So what do you envision for for the space?
Wow. So I'll start with what gets me up every morning. I won't lie, Hans. I mean, we're humans, right? There comes a time when you feel like I'm overwhelmed. I can't take another step. I don't even know how I'm gonna make it through this day. But what I can say, what keeps me going in moments like that is when I look back from how far I've come. The power of reflection is something that we take for granted, but I believe it's something that can take us further. Every time God reminds me of how far I've come, some of the things He took me out of to bring me to where I am now, it fills me with so much gratitude, and at the same time, it fills me with so much strength for the journey ahead. I was reading in 1 Kings 19, the Bible says Elijah was sleeping, and the angel woke him up and said, wake up and eat, for the journey is long. And He gave him bread and He gave him water. And imagine someone like Elijah who just called fire from heaven, hello, and then now he's the one who's like, I don't even want to wake up. Like, just take me, just check me out. God is still saying to him, wake up. And I think that's what I can say to the audience. In that moment where you're feeling like, I can't take another step, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. Get up and eat. Eat what? Eat the bread and have the water, which obviously is a representation of the bread of life, who is Jesus Christ, the Word of God, and the living water, which is His presence in the form of the Holy Spirit. Just commune with them. And the minute you're going to do that is the minute you're going to have the strength for the journey that, is lying ahead of you. When you will reflect, when you will look back, the Bible says, forget not, the good things that the Lord has done for you in the past. Look back. Remember that at the moment where you felt like, I'm not getting out of this one. And you got out. Literally, you're here, Isn't that a sign from God that He's not done with you? And whatever it is that is overwhelming in the present is still, you're going to get out of it. He's going to get you out of it so that you can get out on the other side.
I think when you did speak about, when I asked the question, my mind also went to First Kings as well. And the fact that in that moment, God sent angels to minister to Elijah. And I think one thing about your life as well is that you worship, I think you sing as well in church. And I know you're very...
Well, I don't sing. I used to. In the archives. I think I have to retrieve that singing ability somewhere. Closet singer, closet worship singer. But I intercede. I lead intercession. Yes, those pictures you're seeing is me leading intercession and prayer.
And I think one thing I would just love to also bring in is like your love for young people. That's something that I'm sure, like if you say like the average age of the people you bring on, I'm sure it's below 25 or
so true.
So what encourages you about young people in... Can I say you're evangelist? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, winning or fishing them out. Yeah.
So I think that's what encourages you about, especially young people. What encourages you about, going and seeking out and bringing people to God?
Young people, I believe, are very close to God in the sense that if you look through the Bible, most of the people who were called by God were called when they were young.
Yeah.
I remember when I first read the book of the story of Prophet Samuel, that he was only 7 years when he encountered the Lord for the first time. That really touched me. I was like, Lord, I think I was 10 or 11 when I read that story for the first time. And I'm like, he was even younger than me. I was like, I was moved. I was like, God, you love children so much. You love young people so much. We look at the life of Jesus. He was in the temple when he was 12. Yeah. I mean, most 12-year-olds don't want to be in the temple. They want to be in the park, But there he was doing his father's business. History proves actually the disciples are not necessarily, what we watch in the No Shade to the movies and stuff. Most of them were young. They were actually in their teenage years when Jesus called them. Why? Because God has a heart for the young people. The young people still have strength, zeal, energy, they have influence, and they most of the time for a young person, especially a young person who's determined, when they've made up their mind about something, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to undo that, They have faith. They have big faith for big things, and they don't have too many responsibilities, especially for those who are not yet parents or spouses. So God knows all of that. And the irony is we live in a society which young people are still looked down on, even today, still sidelined in the name of they are too young. You are too young. You are too inexperienced. But according to who? Because if you look at the system of God, that's not how God operates. Yes. David was a kid when he was anointed. The same inexperienced guy when his brothers were soldiers for years, right? So for me, that's what drives me towards the young people, that God has a heart for them. He has a place for them on his table. And we need to create that. The more we sideline the young people, is the more we're losing them. Yeah. And when you look at the opposing side, they're doing the exact opposite. They are catching them when they're young. If you look at the biggest stars today in the entertainment space, they started when they were 7, 12, 15. You know, why? Why are they targeting them there? Because they know that if they can just instill a certain doctrine in their minds, it's going to be difficult to undo that.
That is true.
And then you look at the person now when they're 30, 40, and people are like, what's wrong with her? What's wrong with him? They're falling apart. No, this is the person being a grown-up in front of us, but the inner child is the one that has not been healed.
They were never ministered to them.
Exactly. No one took them out of that space of saying, this life is not for you. God has something better. So if we can catch them when they are young, if we can instill in them when they are young, the love for the Lord, you know, train up a child, right? As the Bible tells us in Proverbs. If we can do that, if we can show them that God loves them while they are still young, and He wants to use them while they are still young, I'm telling you, by the time they're grown up, they will never deviate from that path.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is a very beautiful answer, and that also encourages me. Those answers are so. Thank you so much for that. I think that's a perfect way to end today. That was really nice. I think we covered a lot of the topics.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being open and for being so, forthcoming with your experiences and everything. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Hans, for having me. And may God bless this platform. I trust and in fact, I believe God is going to use this platform to do even greater exploits.
Thank you.
Thank you for
so
having
much.
me.
I really appreciate that.